Welcome to SoulWhat, a Soultopia production. Every Tuesday, Michelle and Roger Welch take a deep dive into the intriguing and proactive world of metaphysics, a world beyond our human perception. They'll talk to empaths, readers, and other guests from all walks of life to find out what's hiding under the surface, uncover the mysteries of our modern world, and reveal the answers you need to live a happy, healthier life. Now, here's your hosts, Michelle and Roger Welch.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey guys, what's happening tonight?
I recognize this studio. I haven't been in here in a while, have I?
She's been slacking off.
I know, I've been slacker. And Matt, thank you. Been holding down the fort.
We had her.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Tell her
Yeah.
that we had her input from.
That was me the whole time. Yeah,
Well,
that's
not
how
so,
it felt.
sometimes it was
probably.
more like this.
That sounds more accurate.
That's probably, yeah, it's probably more like, with the
Exactly.
couple of cuss words at you in there, like, bring me a drink.
Well, glad to have you back.
Thank
You've
you.
been missed.
Thank you so much.
That just means I have to work more when you're gone, and that's not fun.
I was going to say, no, I'm glad to be back, and I'm glad I'm back tonight, especially because we have a very, very special guest with us tonight. I'm going to read his bio in a second, but so many of the people that Roger, I don't know if you would agree with this, but we have 3 stores now. You agree with that, right? But when we went and would drop names, and we know people in this business, right?
Yeah.
From doing this and from our stores and things like that. So, what do you feel like the name that got dropped the most and was responded to for Tide? Who do you think? Besides you, besides Roger.
Oh, it was Matt's.
Yeah, so Mat
definitely
Auryn, our guest today, Matt, I'll talk to you about it in a little while, Matt, but it was, your name was dropped a lot at a convention we went to because as were all the keynote speakers and a lot of different speakers, and it was Mat Auryn is the star of the day, and we're excited to have him, and I'm actually excited to have gotten to know him a little bit as much as you can on Facebook, and look forward to getting to know you more, Matt, at Tide. Mat Auryn is a witch, a professional psychic, and occult teacher. He has been drawn to the occult and metaphysical since an early age, reading books on witchcraft at 8 years old. He is a high priest in Sacred Fire's tradition of witchcraft founded by Devin Hunter. He has also studied with various other traditions and teachers, including Christopher Penczak in the Temple of Witchcraft tradition, Lori Cabot in the Cabot tradition, Stormy Fairy-Wolf in Black Rose Witchcraft, Jason Miller in the Sorcery, and I'm going to say Hecate wrong. I'm sure you can correct me on that, and more. He's a devotee of the Covenant of Hecate, founded by Sarita, and you can correct this to D'Est, I believe. He is the author of the international best-selling book, Psychic Witch, A Metaphysical Guide to Meditation, Magic, and Manifestation. He runs the blog For Puck's Sake on Pantheos Pagan, is a content creator for Modern Witch, has a column in Witches and Pagans magazine and Horns magazine. He has been featured in various magazines, radio shows, podcasts, books, anthology, and other periodicals. Matt was the very first recipient of the Most Supportive Witch Award, presented by Witchway magazine, for helping others in the witchcraft community and going above and beyond to make other witches feel like they are not alone. I love that. Mat Auryn, thanks for being with us.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's great to finally see you. And eventually I get to see you in person really, really soon, which is exciting.
Yeah.
Definitely so.
Yeah, we're really looking for it. A lot of people are saying, what I was referring to is at our stores, there will be a lot of people that I think expect, or they think that just because they've written a book that everybody that comes in the stores knows everybody in these communities, and they don't. Even if they read one of their books, it's not like necessarily that they're a household name with a lot of them, especially in our 3 stores. What we hear a whole lot is, I'm new. I'm new. I'm new to this, you know, give me a little help. And that's what they want. And so that's why your book, I think, has been one of the books that we just completely sell out of constantly.
Yeah.
Right.
We're probably going through about a case a month, if not more.
I think more than that.
Yeah. I know we're ordering at least a case every month, if not a few more. Yeah.
Yeah, and we sell lots of books. So, but it's interesting that when we were asking around, because we're having this little thing, as you know, Matt, called Tide, and which you were so gracious to come to, and we were asking at this event, which it carried the people that came. It was oddities and curiosities. I don't know. We bought every piece of merchandise you could buy, so clearly we were fans. But we were walking around and we were asking people from different towns several names who they knew, and you definitely won that. They were like, "Oh, Mat Auryn. Oh, yeah, Mat Auryn. Oh, yeah. Now, when is that?" And then all of a sudden, so then I stopped saying the whole spiel, and I just started saying Mat Auryn's going to be there. So thank you. It cut the spiel down a little bit. So,
well, I'm happy to help.
Yeah, so this is a little different. What we're doing with Tide, and then we'll come back and talk to about your book in just a second, because I want to about this book and your upcoming book. What we're doing with Tide my whole intention was to really eventually to take the cross-pollination of different groups of people, and meet to talk about the profession that we're most in, but to also do it where I would bring in, you know, a politician, I bring in a dentist, I might bring in a whatever, and they're having that same conversation with us, because we do that on the show a lot. You know, we'll bring in, I think my dentist is going to be on in a couple of weeks, and we're talking about how he uses his intuition, you know, and those x-rays, I know you use those things, but I think that it's, I just was rereading the book today, this best-selling book, you guys, Psychic Witch, and this is my copy, and it is highlighted very thoroughly. If y'all can see, y'all see how highlighted. So I highlight my books, and I happen to love this book, Psychic Witch. The minute that I saw the cover, and I didn't know you. It's not like we knew. I knew of you, but I didn't know you, and so it wasn't like I was looking for my good friend, you know, Roger's book to come out or something. But I saw this cover, and I was like, because of owning stores, I was like, this is gonna sell huge, just from looking at the cover, and you could feel the cover too. And I don't know how I saw it. In the catalog before I ordered. It wasn't like I got some set. I didn't know you get some special, you know, sneak peek. But when I read it, because I was writing, what I looked at Llewellyn's books, and yours was the one I looked at and said, "This is the most organized book. You lay it out exactly. This is exactly the way I like to learn, and I think the majority of people like to learn." And I really liked how you met the reader. It feels like at whoever it is. I like how you pointed out that they could learn, and you maybe didn't say it like that. You might have said it in a more gentle way, but we can all learn, and that you invited everybody to go on the witch, you know, this journey of this book with you. And I think that's why it's a bestseller, for me at least. Yeah. Since I've read it like 3 or 4 times now. Why do you think it's a bestseller? What do you think? Did you know when you were writing it?
Well, first of all, thank you. That's a lot of very, very kind things to say. You know, I wasn't really thinking about bestseller when I was writing it. My whole intent was just writing the book I always wanted, because I was a Llewellyn kid. Just like in the bio you read, at like a very young age, I was devouring any book on anything spiritual, witchy, metaphysical, divination, anything of that nature. And I felt that, you know, there are some really, really good psychic development books out there. But over the years of my various training and my experience, I thought that a book on essentially like tapping into all of the clairs, like understanding what all the different clair senses are, that everyone can engage into it, and then the practices to do it.
Right.
Is very important. And I feel like it's important to these other occult topics or spiritual topics, such as magic or manifestation. So I don't know. I didn't know if anyone was going to buy it or not. You know, I knew like maybe some of my friends would. But yeah, the cover was, I was pretty adamant about, and they did a great job with my ideas. And what I think is really interesting, and that you kind of talked about it a little bit, is that I hear from so many people that for some reason, children and animals are drawn to the book. So there's definitely, I don't know whether that's the cover itself, or if it's, you know, like I do have spells woven into the book. You know, so I don't know if it's a combination of the two or one or the other, but I always think it's interesting when people say, you know, that they can feel something just from the book itself before they even like open it, like something kind of draws them to it.
I like how like on this book, you have the owl on there. You know, very traditionally, people kind of look at the owls as being very wise, wisdom type things. So, you know, I think that draws it in. Don't know if that's what you meant with with having it in there. But then the new book coming out, you have the moth on the front of it, right? Mm-hmm. So what about, how do you, I'm assuming you probably had a lot to say about that being put on the new book too, right?
Yes. So that was, you know, I wanted it inverted so that when you looked at it, you knew that they went together completely. Owl and moth are both, let's get woo. They're both spirits that I work with. So owl has been a very long ally. It's not just owl in general, it's a specific spirit that takes the form of owl. And I talk about it a little bit in the book, Psychic Witch, when I'm talking about like synchronicity and like my first visit from owl and how I would see owl everywhere for the next 24 hours. With moth, it was very unexpected. I didn't know what was going to be the essentially the mascot of this work. But moth was very adamant. This sounds very woo, but when I'm writing a book, or even before I'm writing a book, I tend to have a lot of dreams where it's almost like I'm being told what to do. Like, this needs to be on the cover. This needs to cover this area. So moth was really adamant about being on the cover. And you know, I'm glad it was, but if I had my say of doing it over, I would probably pick something that wasn't as intense. I mean, like writing book 2 was definitely way harder than book 1. And when you think of like that moth energy of like, you know, the caterpillar, you know, eating, and then they spin their cocoon, and then they essentially like liquefy completely to transform, which is the theme of the book. But I also kind of felt like that felt like my writing process. Like this book has transformed so many times since I started writing it to where it is now with the editors. And hopefully I'll get the layout soon, and I'm excited about that.
Right. Yeah. He knows.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I just got something. I think it was when did you say that date was, Michelle? Or something from Llewellyn for my third one. And it's interesting because I didn't expect for my first book, The Magic of Connection, and my second book, Spirits Unveiled, really to have that much of a tie-in. But it was an intentional, like, you know, to have, but you can't help it, I think. When you written fairly close together, I don't just blow off a topic. I'm still interested in that topic. And if I think it's truth, or truth to me at the time, or really cool, or whatever, something, you know, I get an epiphany of some sort. Usually they go really, really fast, or they stick with me a really long time. I get obsessed, right? Yeah. So it seems to me cool, like that the name of your book, your second one, is Mastering Magic, a course in spellcasting for the Psychic Witch, and it's due in October, but for pre-order now. So is it? Walk us through that a little bit. I mean, I've seen what it's going to look like and everything. It looks mirrored. I mean, so how is it different than the first one?
So with Psychic Witch, the primary focus was on awakening all your psychic senses so that you can enhance your magical practice, including engaging in magic that doesn't require anything other than your mind, your body, your spirit. With mastering magic, it's kind of reversed, which is why I thought the inverting the colors would be perfect. Now that you have those kind of psychic faculties, it's about, engaging in traditional spellcraft to enhance your psychism. So I would say about like 75 to 80% of the spells in the book and workings have to deal with enhancing your psychic ability. Because for me, I do believe that psychic ability and spirit connection and things of that nature are essentially what is going to differentiate, a magical practice or a spell that is successful and consistent versus one where it's sort of like, it may happen, it may not happen.
Right.
And the book also, while it's still kind of very entry level, I'm still trying to write for that entry level because I'm trying to bring people along. I don't want to jump into the deep end right away. But I discuss a lot of things that I don't see discussed in a lot of magical books, and things that I feel, and I'm not just talking magical practices, but just sort of things about like one's mindset and stuff of that nature. But there's all sorts of things. Most people are familiar with casting a circle. I go over various shapes that you can also do and how that energy is different and why you would want to do that. I have many great contributors because I wanted to see, well, what are your, what kind of magic do you do to enhance your psychic ability? So I got an amazing roster of people who have contributed that have very, very different magical practices. And I don't know, I don't want to give too much away, but essentially that's sort of my like quick elevator pitch of what's in the book. And I do start off with, a story from my childhood that is kind of dark. So it starts off the tone very, very dark. And once again, that's sort of the moth thing, right? But it's my story of like how I realized magic is real, energy is real, spells are real. And essentially, looking at like who that person was and who I am, it really shows how magic can transform someone's life. And my hope is that this book can provide the tools to people to change any situation that they're in and realize that they aren't powerless, that they have the power to essentially take the steering wheel of their own life with magic.
So, because you're talking about a lot about psychic abilities, you hear a lot of people talk about it. Well, psychic ability is a gift. Some people, oh, well, it's something can be learned. What do you think? Is it psychic ability is a gift, can be learned, kind of a combination? And how does it work with what you have going on here?
So I believe it can be a gift. So I believe just in the way that someone can be naturally artistically talented, or someone can be naturally gifted at sports or something. But I believe it's something that everyone is born with, and it's something that everyone can work with and enhance. Just like you don't have to be naturally artistically gifted to take art lessons and practice it and develop a beautiful art practice, art. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but I think like I in Psychic Witch, I have this thing about how I don't like the word ESP, just because I don't like what it sort of suggests. ESP is this idea of our psychic senses being extra, that there's something beyond our ordinary senses, our natural senses, something that's extended. I actually think it's the opposite. I believe that psychic ability is essentially the senses that our souls have and that we have before we're incarnated. And I believe when we're incarnated, those crystallize into what we think of as our primary senses. So it's well, Michelle would know, with mediumship, spirit communication, the way that spirit communicates is through those psychic senses. That is the language of spirit. And since we are essentially spirit and we're spirit before we're born, it's just a matter of tuning into that and also figuring out how you've conditioned yourself out of psychic ability. I have discussion in the book about children and how, I think most people who have had children that aren't totally closed off from this stuff, or people who just remember a lot of their childhood, children are tapped into something a lot stronger than adults are. And then it kind of waves off after a certain age. And there's also brainwave tie-ins with that. But what's interesting is sociologically, it's around the age of like 7 or 8. I think it's 7 or 8. It may be a bit younger. It's been a while since I wrote the book and have done all the research on the ages and stuff. Yeah. But that's the age when you essentially, as a person, realize that other people have expectations of you and that what you do informs their opinion of you. So that's when all that hard societal sort of programming happens. And I think that's where a lot of people start getting out of touch with something that's just natural to children.
Yeah, I agree with that because, people as a child, adults will a lot of times kind of squish it. Like tell them, oh, that imaginary friend's not real. You're just making that up. That type of, because this will happen to me. Tried to happen to me.
Yeah.
Well, even a lot of times parents can be well-meaning and believe them, but they're trying to make their child not scared. So a lot of times children happen to interact with spirits or may see something that they don't understand or frightens them. And so a lot of times the adult will, to calm them down and make them feel safe, even if they are freaked out that their kid's saying this, will essentially tell them it's not real. And I think, although the intentions are good, I think that helps in that kind of squashing of those abilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Definitely so.
Yeah. They did it all with me, whatever they could do.
Drink that orange juice.
So, yeah, Matt, anytime they thought I have any psychic stuff, they would have me drink orange juice. So that's apparently the cure when I was young. 100 years ago, really? The cure was vitamin C, apparently.
Which is why she won't drink orange juice today.
I can't stand
Even with
it.
vodka.
Yeah, nothing. nothing. Do you want to take a short break and do our what the hell did she buy on Amazon? All
right. So we do this thing, Matt, because she's had this deal with Amazon, right? I think she's always ordered books and, Kindle books. Well, in the last year, she's figured out she can actually order products from Amazon. And she orders the stupidest shit. But the problem is she won't order one. She orders like 100 of them. What'd you order this time?
I thought it was very cute. I thought it was attractive. And it
looks like it came. What's that place?
It's a side beret. Barrette. Yes. So you can put it
in my hat.
Well, since
right there.
See, I chopped off 4 inches of my hair, so now I thought it looks silly, like too silly. So now
how many did you order?
I put a barrette. So how many of those did I get from that one Amazon order? How many
20,
do you think?
20.
Huh? A little bit higher.
Shit. What the fuck is wrong with you?
It's an accident.
How many did you get?
I do think I got like 25, to be honest. I think I got 25 of them.
They all look the same?
Some pretty much.
Yeah.
There are some pearl, this high grade pearl that I bought here. This is super high grade.
I can tell.
Yeah, so.
Is that just in case one of them breaks that you have 24 extras?
Yeah, well, no, it was just because I didn't know how to put in the number.
Okay.
So, Matt.
Guess what we're giving out at Tide?
It's going in everybody's gift
Hey, Matt, you can put this on your head.
That's in the keynote speakers baskets and their swag baskets. So they get and then they
what else are you getting? The exfoliating, the exfoliating towel.
The exfoliating towel.
Yeah.
Which I have about 50 of those.
Yeah, but there's 4 in a pack, and you got 50 packs.
Okay.
That's 200.
So I got 200 of those. See? It's all taken
I'll
care
have to
of.
get glue for the beret.
Yeah.
Yeah, get it stuck up there.
I
See,
don't have hair to.
Yeah.
we can tape it, but
Yeah.
Well,
tape
it's
it or glue
yeah,
it.
two-sided tape on it. That's what
Maybe if you
I
grow
have
the
to do
beard
that
out a
too.
little bit, that could go in the beard.
You could go, yeah.
so everyone voting. Do y'all think so far this has been the best though? I think it's been
God.
best. This is all I know how to purchase is books, more books, and every now and then a tarot deck. But they come up here anyway, and so
I
then
wonder,
I get
is there a way
yelled
I could
at.
put buy-in limits on that account?
Because I didn't, Matt, I never ever shopped Amazon. Like I didn't know people bought stuff on Amazon. I didn't know. I mean, I thought it was for books. That's all basically. And I saved so much money until it was like COVID, and I realized, oh, you can order like clothes and stuff from here. I thought it was all books and maybe like electronics or something.
They said change your Amazon password and not tell you what it is.
Oh Lord.
I think you can set it to where it has to be approved by somebody else.
That's
every
what we
order.
need to
That's
do.
what you need to do.
I'm not
like
that
parental
age
guidance.
yet.
Parental locks on
Yeah.
it.
No,
I'm gonna
no,
put
no.
parental locks on
You
it.
are not.
Yes, I am. Do that tonight.
That's what I get for marrying somebody 10 years younger or however many, 8 years younger than me.
All right, we got a question on here on Facebook. Is there a difference between spirituality and witchcraft? And they're asking because not all witches are spiritual and not all spiritualists are witches.
Okay. That's actually a very different question than what I'm usually asked. Usually I'm asked, is witchcraft a religion? But for this question, I would say that witchcraft is a spirituality, not so much spiritualist, because that's a very specific,
Yes.
mediumship church, spiritualism. But I think we then have to dive into, well, what do we mean by spirituality? And for me, spirituality is your connection to the spirit world and to your own spirit. So I think that you can engage in witchcraft or magical practices, and you can be atheist, you can be agnostic, you can be polytheistic, you could be monotheistic, regardless, because it's a tool set that you use with how you relate and connect to everything around you, including the realm of spirit, the realm of unseen, and the spirit within, which is why I started with Psychic Witch before the other books, because I feel that's the most important connection to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you started that though, talking about witchcraft being a religion itself. What do you think? Because we've had this conversation on the
Wicca.
show, and because you do, like you were talking about, there's a lot of different spirituality out there, and a lot of witches that actually practice both.
Yeah, I mean, I think witchcraft can be a religion. If we look at modern witchcraft practices, it starts off as a religion, with like Gerald Gardner and Alex Sanders and Robert Cochran. What they were doing was very religious in nature. But there are witchcraft practices and magical practices that don't have to necessarily be religious. There's witchcraft practices that could be argued are unreligious, in the sense that, so there's the Terry Pratchett quote that I love. And I think it's Witches Abroad. He's a fiction writer, writes kind of silly magical novels. But he has this quote about how witches don't believe in the gods. Believing in the gods is pointless. It would be like believing in the mailman. It's just something that you come to know is real. And I think regardless of how you frame divinity and what lens you see it through, I think that, that connection is very, very personal, and that is spiritual. And that's why I'm very firm that like witchcraft is a spirituality, like for how I define spirituality. Whether it's a religion or not depends on the individual and the specific tradition and how they relate to the divine. Because there's also, I don't know, we, like as Americans and Westerners, we often define religion in the sense of like monotheism. And we look at monotheistic religions or certain Eastern religions like Buddhism or Hinduism, and we use that as sort of our base of defining what a religion is. But then you can look at like anthropology, and they have sort of a different idea of when they're discussing religion. So like when they're looking at indigenous people, and indigenous people are like giving an offering to like the spirit of the river or something like that, anthropologists will often, talk about them engaging in religious ceremony or, worshiping that deity. That's how they're framing it. So the problem is because we have so many influences on our English language, and there's a very slippery slope of like certain things, like what defines a god, what defines religion.
Right.
If you look at Japan, they have the kami, right? So the kami can be like celestial deities, but it could also just be the spirit of the land or an ancestor or something. And so there's sort of a blurred line, and we would sort of translate that in English as the word God. So that's a really tough one, but Wicca with a capital W is definitely religious. It is a religious mystery tradition, but not all witchcraft is religious.
Yeah.
It's a good question though.
Yeah, it is.
And I don't think it was a question intended to.
No, it was actually somebody on
question.
Facebook asking about it, and she said, "Thank you very much."
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely so.
What I like, I will tell you, I like your demeanor, how you've handled yourself after the book. I've watched the book get more and more popular, be published in more and more languages, and I do watch that sort of thing. I don't do it. I try to not do it in a judgy way. I just do it. I kind of do it in a don't let me down way. You know how you have somebody, you watch them, they're doing really well. You want to see how they handle that, right? And you really handle yourself with dignity and grace. And that's something I've said a lot, Matt. It means a lot when I watch in this business I came from. And I know we all probably had other businesses, but practicing law, at least people would, maybe they'd be scoundrels, or whatever people think they are, but we try to handle ourselves with professionalism and dignity in our profession most of the time. And I'm glad to see that in this profession. And someone who is, you've achieved so much with this first book, and I'm sure you will with the second and all the others that you're going to write. And I know you've written already, done a lot of forewords and written forwards for people, but we just appreciate the time that you've taken to help us for the event that you're speaking at Tide and with Newts. Tide is a new event, and you've just jumped right in, and we really appreciate that. And it just speaks very highly of you, and like Sasha Graham and Ethany, and and of course Andrea Furtick is coming. So and you and Andrea are both going to speak. Are double presenters in Newts too. Someone else was going to speak, and Andrea took her place. So now we have both of y'all speaking, and then we have Benabel Wynn coming into Newts, you, Andrea, and then we have Barbara Moore speaking with Charles Harrington, which should be really interesting. Yep. So big differences, but here in Tide, it is this cross-pollination, which I was trying to talk about earlier, about how we use, and I thought you even did it in your book, because your book was intuition and being a witch don't have to be different. And, you sort of opened a little bit, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was some opening of that, they don't have to be, and I highlighted in my ebook, and now I'm looking back at my old highlights. So, but, and you can say what it did, but you described the difference too between intuition and different types of things. And I think it's kind of teaching so many classes too. I agree with you. I think it's, how good are you when you first jump on a skateboard? Most people can stand on it. That's about as far as I can go on a skateboard, right? But if they really practice, if some people are just quite natural at it. So I think the same thing with, intuition all the way to, I'm reclaiming the word psychic because I think it's a great word. As it's very much like faith, right? Believing what we don't really see. So it was interesting when I saw in this book how you were combining and bringing two worlds together. Not necessarily opposite worlds, not meant to be, but maybe in some ways opposite in the sense that, and I love, if you want to speak to that, do you know what I'm talking about? The two worlds of just sort of intuition and which I love that. And I love how you did it just so beautifully, how you wrote it.
Thank you. Yeah, I see psychic ability and magic as two sides of one coin, specifically because magic tends to involve energy work. So really, it's the same thing. It's just whether it's input or output. So psychic ability is the input of receiving that energetic information. Magic, manifestation, energy work, whatever you want to call it, is the output and manipulation of that energy, if that makes sense.
It does.
So I think that they work hand in hand, which is why this book and the next book are kind of trying to work hand in hand as well. I am all about the word psychic. Obviously I put it on my book cover. I do define psychic ability and intuition differently though.
Saw that.
I make a difference in defining the terms and separating them because they are used very interchangeably, including in a lot of books. But I think sometimes trying to define words can bring more clarity and understanding to what something's talking about. So like psychic ability really intimidates a lot of people, especially if they're trying to learn it. Like take clairvoyance, for example. Clairvoyance is probably the one that scares people the most in the sense of like intimidating them. And people have this sort of assumption that all clairvoyance is like, all of a sudden, like how they portray it in movies and shows, like all of a sudden, like you black out and like you're just seeing like a whole world and like a crystal clear picture of everything that's going on. And while it can happen in that way, it usually isn't that intense. And I think when we start realizing that a lot of these things are natural, that they happen all the time and we're constantly dismissing them, I think that's really empowering because then you can build up to those levels. But if you're shutting yourself down already because you're setting the bar so high, which is why I have a problem when a lot of psychics, mediums, stuff of that nature refer to themselves as gifted in a weird way that sort of like specializes them.
Okay.
Yeah, like sort of like this is something I can do, but you guys can't because I'm gifted, I'm blessed, I'm the one with it, which is like if you could imagine, to use your example, skateboarding. If skateboarding was like that, like, oh no, I was born to skateboard, I can skateboard, but you can't skateboard. You can do anything if you are sincere enough and you put enough practice into it.
But I really am so glad you brought up about, so in my latest book, I keep blanking out on the name of it. Spirits Unveiled. Thank you. I really, really talk about the opposites of things. And because my book is on the magic of connection, the first one is on alchemy. I mean, so it's on magic, but it's using it in a different way, learning that we can transmute energy just all by ourselves. And it's interesting because I've seen that you've read or taught to somebody I read, Damien Eccles. I was reading a bunch of his stuff when I was writing that book. And it connected with me, a lot of the things that he wrote. And I think you had just written something about him recently, but maybe I'm wrong, on Facebook or something like that. I thought
he endorsed my next book.
Yeah. And I love reading his books too. So, I think that it's really good and to really realize, and I forgot where I was going with this, bringing the two things together. I'm not trying to, what?
It's your story. I'm listening.
Okay, then you go. He's trying to save me. But it was important, but I forgot what it was.
Okay.
About opposites?
It was sort of, you said something about keeping, you brought two things together. But
psychic ability and intuition, how I differentiate them?
It's that, it kind of got me there. And It's just that we say a lot of things.
You-
I want people to read this one because his is a bestseller and mine says a lot of the same. I mean, I was reading it thinking
they
how many
kind of
things
correspond together.
when you start talking about energy in your book and the movement of energy, it just reminds me a lot of my book. So, yeah.
Of how it is. So, do you have favorite tools to work with?
Like physical tools?
Yeah, like tarot cards, pendulums.
Oh.
What is your kind of go-to?
For psychic stuff.
Yeah,
So
psychic
if
stuff.
I'm using a tool, I will usually stick with tarot or some sort of like cartomancy, whether it's Lenormand or Oracle. But tarot's my girl. Me and tarot go a long way back. You know, before I wrote a book, before all of this, I was a professional tarot reader for many years in Salem, Massachusetts. And in my own private practice. And I developed a very intimate relationship with tarot. I also sort of developed a lot of like tools and tricks in regards to like psychic ability and using tarot that I don't think I've seen anyone use or write about. And I kept all those like sort of like trade secrets, but I don't need them anymore for, you know, sense of like competition of like, because Salem is like there's so many readers, right? And you don't want to you don't want everyone to know all your like psychic secrets of what you're tapping into and stuff. But the book that's contracted right now that I'm writing is on that. So it is on, you know, all of that sort of all those little psychic tricks that I would use while using tarot.
That's good.
So
that sounds interesting. Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. So in your downtime, all right, because I see you on, because you're on freaking social media about as much as I am, because I see you post something, I like it.
Because we have to, right?
You know, because you're on there a lot too. You're writing all the time. What do you do? All right, you back out of this stuff. What do you do for fun, man?
Okay, so this is always the funniest question because it's like literally nothing. My whole world, my passion is my job. So, you know, my whole world since I was little has essentially been magic and psychic ability and energy work. So I sometimes have trouble when I'm in situations where there's essentially just normal people around and I have to connect with them because sometimes I don't really like, I don't share those interests, you know, or, you know, I don't have anything to contribute to that isn't like magical or spiritual or something of that nature. So I'm a very boring person by some standards.
Yeah, I don't think that's boring though.
No,
So,
no.
yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're doing what you love, I mean, that's kind of it, you know? I mean, Michelle and I, even when we're our downtime, we're sitting at the house, we're watching TV and making, you know, jewelry still.
Yeah. Even though we have now people make it for us and everything, still it's like, I'm like, hey, I want to make one of those malas or I want to, you know, just chill out because our business is our passion too.
Yep.
So you know, there's those moments where you're kind of like, you know, but it's work. But it is our passion also. So that's, we don't have a lot of downtime.
That's such a hard balance too. Once your passion is your business and you've been doing it for a while, to keep that passion alive. And I find a lot of people struggle with that. And it is a really hard, you know, balance. And that's something that does kind of worry me a bit when I see a lot of people turning their spirituality or even hobbies that they have into their primary business, just sort of jumping into it. Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it can definitely burn someone out and drain the passion, you know, because then you have to unite the real world into, you know, the thing that brings you joy. And by the real world, I mean things like the government and contracts and taxes and having to deal with very difficult people and, you know, navigate that in a way that is the least harmful for everyone involved. And it can be tricky. So I always think it's interesting because I live with Devin, Storm, and Chaz, and they run a business. They had a brick and mortar store, and they're also doing what I'm doing. So they're like super busy people, and I think it's interesting that like talking to different people about like how do you avoid burning out or losing the passion of something, because I think sometimes bringing that sort of real world mechanic into making your passion a business can definitely kind of kill that passion for a lot of people. I don't know why I'm rambling about
No,
that.
you know what?
You're exactly right
It's
about it,
interesting though, because so many people come in and they say, "I want to practice my passion," and people will say, "Well, you were given if your passion is your purpose." Well, if you take that your passion is your purpose to the logical conclusion, you're going to lead us to what you were just talking about.
Yeah.
So we need to be sure that we agree with that a passion is someone's purpose. I don't think we just have one purpose anyway, but I think it's dangerous to tell people that, because then they think that the pinnacle of what I'm supposed to do on this earth is, go start a Soultopia or go start a store like Devin, Storm, start their store, and or go write this book and write a best-selling book, or whatever it is, and we're told this is your purpose. And I think a lot of readers, and it gets me, I'm real big on ethics with reading, it gets me really riled up when they'll just really pop off and say, yeah, you could just leave that job, and just leave the job and you can do a job doing this. And I think that's really not a great thing for how many people now are on social media. It may look like you can make a whole lot of money doing this, and you might make a little bit fast, but I really warn against it. And Matt, I can tell you have something to add about that.
Yeah, especially like our industry, especially if you're with someone like Llewellyn or Weiser, or you're kind of more on the magic or witchy side of publishing books. I think people have a very strong misconception of like how much money you're going to make versus how much of your heart and your soul, your blood, sweat, and tears is going to go into it. I've been very blessed with this book, but it's not uncommon at all that people have, a job, 2 jobs, 3 jobs, as well as being, a spiritual author, because it's not like if you're writing to write a bestseller, or you're writing to make money or something like that, like it's really not a realistic risk to take, because it's not.
Yeah. And you have to, I think, to want to write a book, I do think there's a blood, sweat, and tear passion there. There's every kind of passion that you can imagine in writing a book. But there's so many people who say they're going to write one and they don't. And you go, just write it. And really it is just sitting down and having something. We all have something to say, right? But I will tell you, and I will tell everybody that I read. Now I'm a little behind with what's coming in the store, I admit it. But I used to read every book that came in our store. I'm a couple behind. There are a lot of witch books out there right now. So it's a lot of reading. Yeah. Trust me. You should come to our store. Well, Matt, hopefully you'll get to see it, because we've got 3. And this one's right by...
We're close to where Tide
where we're going to be. Tide will be.
Oh, cool.
This location. And somebody came in the other day, and he did our drum session. I'll just say that. I won't say his name. And it was incredible. Big turnout. He brought some drums, some other people. It was really fun, Matt. You don't have to turn on your thing, but you should join us sometime. Okay. I'd like to see him join in, Matt. And then Roger got a drum and all this kind of stuff. So we came out, and I'm looking for a book, and we carry lots of books and lots of decks. If somebody doesn't have their book at my store, then let me know, because it should be here, because we carry all, including mine. And I've started looking at every time I go in a store, and I'm like, why do you not have this book? He's better at it. But, if you believe in it, they should have it.
Yep.
But I'm telling you, I couldn't find a non-witch book to save my life out there on the floor. What he wanted was somewhat of a witch matter. He wanted to know about the moon phases, and he wanted something he didn't want to Google it. He wanted to read a book. And he wanted to know about the phases of the moon. And of course, there's a perfect one out right now. I've ordered it. I don't know how many times. It's been, I think, 2 circulations now. Finally, they went over to the warehouse, Matt, and they found it because there was one over there. And I was like, yes, this is, I mean, we got to diversify our book collection here just a little bit. Because, I mean, and it just happens because there's so many witch books that we buy them.
It could be me too ordering a lot.
And of course, and it's not that I'm anti-witch, but it's like that we get a little bit of everything in our store, which is what we love about it. We love that people can, go whichever way they want to go. But with the books, I wanted to have this type of, maybe this can give you something to think about if you're willing to join it. There's going to be a panel on something like which is which, or something like that, and some sort of corny name. And I thought about us having at Tide having a panel with somebody from certain, like, follows Wicca exactly. The different, maybe
have a different variety of
a solitary practitioner that seems to be popular here in Dallas. And that book, Solitary Practitioner, I think besides Solitary Witch, that would probably be sold next to as well as his. And then Madame Pamita's Candle Magic has done really well too. But of course, we love Madame Pamita too. But I mean, who can't? And with her and James Devine doing the dance at Tide, that's going to be great.
Yep.
So, anyway, I just think that books are something I'm always going to carry, and it's all and I'm going to ask you later. I should ask you now. What are your top 4? Witch books? Like right now, if you had to grab 4, and you can only grab 4.
Well, I think that's a very difficult question.
It's fine.
Just because I think it depends on the person. Like, well, what do you want out of witchcraft? Like, what area of witchcraft interests you?
Right. Yeah, you're right. It is hard. So
just because there's so many books and there's so many avenues with witchcraft you can go down.
What if somebody was brand new, besides your book?
My book.
No, I agree. This is the one I recommend.
Yeah.
So I really like Laura Tempest de Croft's work. She's probably one of my favorite modern author peers.
Right.
Like, I just love everything she writes. She has a really good one called Weave the Liminal, and I think that's great for beginners because it's not any specific tradition, and the book is very focused on you kind of discovering where your soul leads you in regards to witchcraft practice. I think that's really good. Christopher Penczak's Temple series, I think should always be a staple in like anyone's library that's interested in witchcraft, particularly Inner Temple of Witchcraft or Outer Temple of Witchcraft. In my dedication to Psychic Witch, I actually write that Psychic Witch is sort of my love letter to his book, The Inner Temple of Witchcraft. Devin Hunter's work, while it is very, there is a focus on a semi-religious aspect to it. I think it provides basic foundational tools that every beginner should sort of look into and utilize. Who else has a really good? Thorn Mooney, her latest one, it's like Path. It's slipping me. Or like Way of the Witch, or like The Witch's Path, or something like that.
See how they all run together right now. But yes,
it's with the owl on it. The blue book with the owl is a fantastic book, I think, as well. When it comes to sort of just approaching the topic as a beginner.
Okay. No, and thank you. I appreciate that, because that's very hard for me to do. Like top whatever crystal books. But because I'd be able to go, same thing, I'm like, okay, well, this one has a good index. But it doesn't do them by, if you want to go by color, then you would go with this book. And if you want to go by this, you would go, or, if you have a different means, this would be Vedic astrology, this would be Western astrology. I mean, I put you very much on the spot, but it's kind of.
Do you want crystals for healing or for manifestation?
Exactly. Or, it's all over the place. And that's what we answer when we come in the door. The people who work on the floor are answering every every question. That's why we're getting little books too, little fast reads, little, and we have them up, like this will be running up in all 3 of our stores so people can watch for information. But it's always, I'm new.
Yeah.
But back to, I think the person ushering a lot of new people into the craft, whatever you want to, way you put it, is you.
Yeah.
I think you and this book, and I think it was very well done, and you've represented yourself so well, I must say. And I would say when we were on the news talking about how many was this last year?
Mm-hmm.
What was it?
Last summer.
We were interviewed. You want to take, and what I'm getting is to the fact that it's stuff like this that brought it in.
Yeah, we were on the news because of the whole community as a whole anyway, especially the witch side of things, has grown so much so fast. And there's so much information out there now, like your book and others, but you're getting so much good information out there. People are really, really accepting it, and it's turned a big difference if you look at it in just the last 5 years even. Because if you go back 5 years and you even then said witch, it's just not, it's had a little bit of a negativity to it almost, versus today it's totally accepted.
And you got to remember we're in Dallas, so it takes a little bit. Dallas, Texas, it takes a little bit longer. So you might have been 10 years in one place, and but somebody told us, it was at one of the other stores that we like here in town. She was telling you that Dallas is known as the witch shop,
as the witch city.
The witch city.
Yeah.
It wasn't. We found that out. It was the witch city.
I would have never guessed.
Yeah, right.
But is it that the witch city in all the world, or the witch city of Texas?
I'm not sure either.
I wouldn't have guessed
think it
either.
would be Austin more than Dallas.
You would think, but hey,
it's got to be Texas.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Salem, Massachusetts, like literally
every
witch
day.
city.
Right, that's
like the police cars, like literally have a witch on a broom.
I saw that.
Oh
online.
yeah. I mean, I was like, "There's no way it's Dallas." I can think of a lot of things I would call Dallas, but not that.
Yeah,
it's fun. We have a good time here, but it's I didn't think it would be, but of Texas, maybe. I still think maybe Austin.
All right, so I have a quick question here. This is actually from Oz Online. He's watching.
Okay.
And there's I see this too, what he's getting at on this, but also there's a couple of different ways. That's the problem with this, because it's a gender question. Okay? How do you deal with gender? As a male witch, I'm often, and this is exactly what he says, as a male witch, I'm often told that I can't be a witch because only females have the gifts. Obviously, I know that's not true, but it's very frustrating. Or in some groups, the greeting is always, "Hello, ladies."
So I think gender. So I have lots of different answers to this. But I will start with saying, when you look at witchcraft as a practice, as a modern practice, we attribute it to Gerald Gardner and Alex Sanders and Robert Cochran, who are all men and embrace the word witch, which is gender neutral. When it comes to what genders can be witches, what genders can practice, I think that is ridiculous. I think that is up there with skin color. You know what I mean? Like, if a certain type of person, for who they are, cannot engage in witchcraft, then that's something that I don't want any part of.
Well said.
And that's exactly what I thought, and I was hoping that's where you'd go with that, because I see that same exact thing. What he's saying, I've seen it, in a lot of the groups online and stuff too.
Yeah, I just always say I didn't get out of a lot of boxes to have another big ass box put around me.
And especially witchcraft. I mean, like, if you look at witchcraft, like, historically, like, even beyond modern witchcraft, it's all about, like, breaking out of the boxes. And, there's a streak of heresy to it. There's a streak of, not fitting in with everyone else. They didn't accuse people of witches and burning them because they fit into society really well.
No. Yeah. And so I think that they're never gonna, I don't know, don't put baby in a corner. I'm not gonna be put back in the box. You know, I was definitely, and no offense to any religion, but I was definitely in a very religious, uptight, you know, confines of that. And so now anytime I write or I speak, and I feel you're very careful with your words too, Matt, it feels like, you know, you're just very, very careful with your words. And that's why I think sometimes when you're saying you're toiling over your words, you know, one day you're loving writing and the next day, like most authors, you know, I've watched some of it with you. And because we toil over the words, but I mean, it feels to me that you've gotten across what I thought, if I had to recommend one book, it would be this book. And I'm not just saying that because we do. No wonder we're sold out. We don't need 50 of the witch books at our store, but yet we want to support them. So we get all the books that are new, that look good, you know, that seem to be, and I am drawn to a good cover. You know, I've talked about that. And it's good to, and the other book that we always have is, it's Christine Ashworth's brother. It's Scott Cunningham.
Scott.
Yeah, and Christine's going to be at Tide too. Is it Tide or Newts or both?
She's both.
She's going to be
I
at
think she's at
both.
both.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I knew she was going to Newt. I didn't know she was going to Tide.
I think she's
we
coming to
correspond online.
You might want to check that because there's a couple that I'm friends with, and we you know, kind of going back and forth.
Well, there's so much going on.
Yeah, it's just which one is it or both? Oh, just say both. And then a couple people I've just gone, just do both, and that's how I got them here. They're like, fine, I'm just gonna come watch. And that's like, that's good. So yeah, we have a lot of people coming and watching that have been speakers at Reader Studio and things like that. So it's gonna be good.
Her brother is very important to me, and very important to my spiritual practice. And I don't mean that just in the sense of like, you know, I was a kid who grew up with, you know, his books like Wicca for the Solitary Practitioner and all of his, you know, kind of classics. But Scott is someone that I revere as an ancestor in my ancestral practice, in the sense of he's an ancestor of both my vocation, which is a writer of spiritual topics, but also an ancestor of witchcraft. So I'm really excited to meet her and talk to her. I chat with her online. I love her, but
I really do like her. Yeah, she's another one that she didn't let me down. And not that I go in judging every single person, but I did have a card deck writer let me down. I used his cards for a really long time. Then I saw some stuff he put online, and I try to just scroll on by.
I know exactly who you're talking about and what you're talking about.
And so I just couldn't, and I had to pull it. Yeah, no, I won't say a word. But, you know, just come on, Michelle, scroll on by, but I can't do it. Yeah. And so, you know, it's just sad. And some of I've had to get out of some of the tarot groups because and it's so funny because James Devine, you know, the one that's friends with Madame Pamita, he's like, he laughed at me. He goes, because you put on this love and light. And I'm like, that's just my dialect. I can't help it. I'm from East Texas. And he goes, no, everybody thinks you're just so love and light until you just like zap them or something, right? And I'm like, I haven't zapped anybody. I just will tell you I will just tell you the truth, but as I see it, right? Right.
Yeah.
Well, the truth as I see it is that we are going to have a lot of interesting and diverse ways of telling about so many topics while we're in Tide in Dallas.
And so
that we couldn't get everybody we wanted on the schedule.
I mean, because we don't have enough time. That's the whole thing. There's so many people out there. The thing about Tide is it's not a tarot conference or anything like that. It's actually divination. So it's across the board of anybody and everybody in the industry and what they bring to the industry, from witchcraft or tarot readings or pendulums or whatever, right? So that's the big thing about it. And we could have gone for a week with people wanting to come and speak.
Yeah, and then we're Newts. It was weeks ago that, I mean, unless, you know, we just got I don't know.
Our
Who would
problem
it
with
take?
newts is the fact
maybe
that-
maybe Beyonce or something. Maybe I
Yeah.
made one of those spots around. But no, I'm telling you, it is the lineup. It's crazy who's coming to that thing. It's this, and people are still sending their stuff in. I'm like, I'm sorry. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there was like enough, like triple what, people wanting to speak at news.
yeah.
They're
So it'll
still
be
sending stuff
good.
in.
So we really appreciate it. And your book are you going to mock up a book? Like have your cover on your, you have a flyer for your book, right? Your new book.
Like a flyer.
Yeah, like a handout thing for your new book.
Oh yeah, well
A
yeah.
galley
So I'm
or
talking
what?
to Llewellyn about that. I should have gotten something by now. Last I heard, they were working on something. If not, I'm just gonna have to whip something up and go to FedEx or Kinko's
That's
or
what I
whatever.
did.
and-
I did a fake book last time on this one. And I don't know how long I had it. I never read it. No, I'm kidding. Never read it.
I
It's a
think-
fake book.
I think we just had a
What's
thing
interesting-
printed and made.
What?
Is I have someone on Amazon took my book cover for Mastering Magic and then edited some of the words and sold it as a journal online. And so of course, I reported it to Llewellyn because they're essentially copyright infringement, but it's cool because I was like, well, I need to order one. So, cause I always order the weird, pirated things because this isn't the first time this has happened to me,
Right.
weirdly. But it's funny because I now have a prop for photos. If I cover up a little part of it that says journal or whatever, I can still
Oh,
take
you'll know,
pictures
yeah.
and promote it. So it kind of worked out for me. Yeah, I think that's the closest to a mock-up. I think by the time that we're doing newts, I should probably have either physical books or the advanced copy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting. Mine is June 8th. Where's my book?
I thought it came today. We had Llewellyn stuff, but it wasn't. It was some stuff we had ordered.
We order so
It was
much
literally
from there.
one of the kind of the small box they send. Oh, it's like, oh
Right.
damn, Michelle's book got here. Nope, it was palmistry. Those palmistry charts. That's what it was.
Oh, well, that'll be nice if my books get here. But, yeah, because it'll be June 8th when you can actually get them right after the Tide.
Yeah, we'll probably have a copy or two before the
Yeah,
your
we'll
copy
see.
anyway.
But we've got, I think that Kat Neff from Llewellyn told me, Matt, that there's 7, she counted, because I hadn't counted. She counted, and there were 7 Llewellyn authors speaking at Tide. So she was excited about that. So, yeah, so we've got a pretty good mix
That's
of people. Yeah, it'll be fun. Well, thank you. It's 8:34. Did you have any other questions for Matt?
No, I'm all
Okay.
good.
Well, we're excited to see you, and we appreciate you coming on and telling. I know everybody will play this a million times. This will go quickly to the top of our viewers list because everybody just thinks the world of you. And I look forward to meeting you in person. And Matt Stoker, thank you as always for being
Of
with
course,
us.
of course.
And I'm glad to be back with y'all. And we will see you. Anything else?
That,
Well,
if you get tickets to Tide, it's theinternationaldivinationevent.com. Go there, get tickets tonight.
Yeah, do that. Don't put Tide because that's the detergent.
Yeah, theinternationaldivinationevent.com.
Yeah, it's easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll
And
see
it-
you guys there.
And use code 2022 and get 10% off.
Oh, he's being generous. So code 2022. And thank you again, Matt. We really appreciate you. Thank you for your
Oh,
time.
thank you so much. This has been fun.
Yeah, it's nice to see you finally.
Thanks, Matt.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night,
see you
guys.
next week.
Thanks for listening to SoulWhat, a Soultopia production. If you're intrigued, searching, or looking to schedule a reading of your very own, visit us in sunny Dallas, Texas, or visit us online at facebook.com Soultopia Holistic Boutique. And if you like what you heard, subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcasting platform to be the first to hear new episodes every Tuesday at 7:30 Central.